and it's been a big discovery actually. It was an article produced by one Christian leader, and it was on the topic of spiritual entrepreneurship, which is very surprising and it sounds very contradictory, right? Because entrepreneurship means business, for-profit activity, and spirituality is perceived as something non-profit, right? So spiritual entrepreneurship sounds like dry water or cold fire, something like that. Yeah, oxymoron it's called. Incompatible combination. And I was really surprised and shocked how similar are the concerns of the Christians to our concerns and how similar the problems are. And the most shocking thing in the article for me was that the solution this man proposes, his name is Carey Nieuwhof, American Christian leader, and the ideal model he describes of the person who would actually make the change in religious institutions, you know, the kind of people, you know, the kind of model he described. And being a Christian and probably never heard of Hare Krishnas, he had zero idea who is Prabhupada, but actually the model he described is actually describing Srila Prabhupada in great details. And he said these kind of people we need in today's world. And so yeah, it was very interesting to see Srila Prabhupada in this new light. And many things became very clear for me personally. And yeah, he basically describes in this article, and yes, that I kind of illustrated the points he makes in the article with Srila Prabhupada's example, because Srila Prabhupada at one point said that all the devotees should follow in his footsteps. It's kind of very obvious, very clear thing, but something we do not necessarily understand, because in order to follow in Srila Prabhupada's footsteps, we kind of need to know Srila Prabhupada's secrets of success in his mission, in serving his spiritual master. And this was the most revealing point for me in this article, because this Christian preacher actually analyzed 12 secrets of success in spiritual entrepreneurship. And basically he says that, you know, religious institution, he says church, but it equally applies to any religious institution, is filled up with two categories of people. And these are shepherds and chaplains. You know, basically religious functionaries, right? Those who just do rituals and things like that, have some ceremonial functions. But he said, of course, we need these kind of people in religious institutions, but they do not really bring about the necessary change. And if the church is only filled with shepherds and chaplains, then the church will be dying out gradually, and no one will be able to do anything. So he described that the kind of people which are required for bringing about the necessary change are spiritual entrepreneurs. And then he says that if you want to succeed, you need to either work with these kind of people or become one. And Srila Prabhupada actually made this point many times, that the purpose of Krishna consciousness movement, he said that society, modern society, materially has many things. They achieved success in many fields, but they lost the purpose. And so it became society without head. And so what is required is head, spiritual head of the society. So he wanted devotees to become spiritual leaders. And so this is the reason he established this ISKCON for training devotees how to become spiritual leaders. And so I guess this article and this discussion is very important in this particular regard. And then we'll go through these 12 points and we'll see how they are manifested in Srila Prabhupada's example. And most importantly, we'll see if we could apply these points in our own lives. And point number 1 is think big. He said too many churches or religious institutions die of small thinking. And then he gives examples of small thinking. For example, we don't have enough, or it will not happen. Stop dreaming. That's plenty for now. And of course, the most popular, who will pay for it? Leaders who serve an infinite God should never have their imaginations deadened by small thinking. Spiritual entrepreneurs aren't. They think big. They dream of what could be, not what is, and they see the opportunity in every obstacle. So looking at Srila Prabhupada's example, was he thinking big?
Yes.
Yeah, so many examples of Prabhupada's big thinking. And what's the most obvious example of his big thinking?
When he was sitting on the bench and he was asked by a man, and then he was...
Who are you?
Yeah, who are you? And then he was telling that he's a spiritual leader who has established 108 temples.
Yes, that's one example. But something, not only he was thinking big, but he wanted us to think big as well. And the very first purpose of ISKCON is a clear indication of that big, global, universal thinking of Srila Prabhupada. So this is the first purpose of ISKCON, and it's really good for us to kind of know the first purpose of ISKCON, kind of, understand what we joined, where we are, and what is the purpose of the institution we're connected to, what Srila Prabhupada wanted from us. And so the first purpose is very interesting. One very senior devotee and very professional devotee, Damodar Prabhu, he used to be temple president at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in 80s or maybe early 90s. And he was also representing Stephen Covey's 7 Habits in the United Kingdom, and he was heading the Pricewaterhouse, other famous companies, personal development department, etc. So he's been very, very successful, both spiritually and materially, throughout the years. And now he lives in Australia. And he pointed out to me that look at the first purpose of his call. It does not even have the word God in it. What to speak of Krishna? Why? Because Srila Prabhupada's vision was so broad, all-encompassing. He wanted to include everyone who followed the path of Dharma, or even the path of goodness to that extent. And that is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. So huge, huge purpose. And sometimes we want to scratch our heads and think, how could we achieve peace in the world and unity, real unity, if oftentimes, we're lacking unity in our own society amongst the devotees, and oftentimes devotees are lacking peace. And yet, this is Srila Prabhupada's purpose. So he was thinking big, and as he said, strain your brain and think how to spread this movement. And for that we need to learn how to think big. And then maybe later we can discuss how to do it. And so second point is believe God can. And so he explains, we serve God who created amazing things out of nothing. Why do we think he won't do the same for his church, temple, whatever, institution? Spiritual entrepreneurs believe he will, and they see him do it. They would agree with Henry Ford, who said, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are right. Before you dismiss this as positive thinking nonsense, remember Jesus could not perform many miracles in his hometown because of people's lack of faith. Then moments later he walked on water and fed 5,000 because people in those communities had faith. Spiritual entrepreneurs believe God can, and they see him do it. So I found it a very interesting point, because oftentimes believing in God or believing in Krishna for us is kind of disconnected from practical reality we are in. But he connects that in a very skillful way. He gives this amazing example of Lord Jesus Christ, who actually could not perform miracles in his own hometown. Why? Because people didn't have faith in him. And yet the same Jesus was performing so many miracles, being surrounded by people who had faith in him. And so, how that is relevant in Srila Prabhupada's example, that Srila Prabhupada tried his best to fulfill the order of his guru in India. Was he very successful? Not at all. Why? Because people were thinking, oh, this is another Indian, Krishna. I know Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, I read Bhagavad Gita, nothing special. So they didn't take Srila Prabhupada seriously. And so Srila Prabhupada could do nothing. Same Srila Prabhupada, with same powers, with same knowledge, he could do absolutely nothing, practically speaking. Right? He struggled like anything. Until he was nearly 70. But when he went to America, wow, amazing things started happening. Why? Because people around him actually had full faith in him. Right? And so what's the lesson? Okay, let me ask this question that how many of you want to see Krishna using you as powerful instrument in his hands? Anyone's interested in that? Okay, good. So what do we need for that to make sure it will become a reality?
We're not preaching in the local place.
Not preaching the local place. Well, it's not necessarily depends. Even though yes, it is right that Jesus said there is no profit in one's own hometown. Yeah, because familiarity breeds contempt. Right?
What did you say?
He said that we should not preach in our own place. But it more refers to actually making it a point of associating and working only with those people who are appreciating you and supporting you and believing in you, right? And never wasting your time with anyone else. That's really important point. Trying to convince someone who is not interested in you is waste of time, basically. And so only surround yourself by your supporters and your well-wishers, and that's all. And this is the only condition in which you can function effectively. Then point number 3 is very interesting. See abundance, not scarcity. Spiritual entrepreneurs see abundance and not scarcity. Give a dying church 10,000 euros and they will think they are broke and need to conserve it. Give 10,000 to a spiritual entrepreneur and he will see it as seed money to start something big. To a dying church, 5 leaders is a defeat. To a spiritual entrepreneur, it's a start. Same facts, different mindset. Attitude is everything. So seeing abundance rather than scarcity. Abundance means opulence, wealth, right? And Srila Prabhupada was making a point that the only wealth remaining in Kali Yuga is flowers. So we can see he's very abundantly decorated in here, covered with flower garlands. But yeah, actually Srila Prabhupada also had garlands made with notes. Right? I don't know what you call it. What you call paper money notes or bills in the air. Huh?
Geldpapier.
Papers.
Geldpapier.
In UK they call it notes, in America they call it bills. Anyway, but actually Prabhupada had garland made with money also offered to him. So, how come that Prabhupada started with 40 rupees and ended up with 40 crore rupees, whatever? I think someone estimated that he made in those short 11 years about $3 billion, including assets and, because 108 temples alone, that's a lot of money, right? Like Bhakti Manor, I think, is estimated to be about 60 to 80 million pounds now. And this is just one temple, so Prabhupada opened, and not the biggest one, by the way. there are many more big temples, etc. And plus so many restaurants and schools and so many other things, right? Farm communities. So, yeah, Srila Prabhupada led this world being multi-billionaire. So the prediction actually came true that he will be one of the richest men of India. And so, how that was possible? Because of Srila Prabhupada's vision of wealth rather than, seeing lack or scarcity. And yeah, it's directly connected to his faith in Krishna. And and he was teaching his devotees, training his devotees as well, his disciples. When devotees opened second ISKCON center at Frederick Street, San Francisco. And San Francisco is a very expensive place. And they really struggled to pay the rent because rent was sky high. I just been there last year. Just to rent a tiny little apartment in San Francisco is about $5,000 per month. What to speak of, anything else. So it's huge. And so the devotees was struggling, and they came to Srila Prabhupada. Shyama Prabhu came to Srila Prabhupada, and he said, Srila Prabhupada, we don't really have money to pay for the rent. And Prabhupada said, what do you mean you don't have money? You're doing it for Krishna, so Krishna will send you. And that didn't really make Shyama Prabhu too happy. He said, but Srila Prabhupada, how will Krishna send us money? Do you mean that money will fall from the sky? And Prabhupada said, Krishna knows how he will provide, so don't worry, go and Krishna will take care of it. And Shyama Prabhu didn't have much faith in this, so he went out of Srila Prabhupada's apartment being pretty depressed. And plus, San Francisco is a pretty depressing place as well. It's always gloomy and full of, there is hardly any sun. I mean, even in summertime, it's always covered with clouds and rains a lot, and the winds are blowing, so it's not a very happy place. I don't know why people pay so much money to live there. It's a confusion. And so he was walking through this, gloomy streets, and it was kind of, empty. Maybe it was early morning or something. So there were no people on the street. And the wind was blowing, and he was thinking, where will I get the money? But suddenly he saw $100 notes flying in his face. Wow, what's happening? And somebody else was together with him, maybe Malati or someone. So they started catching this money flying in the wind. And there was nobody. It was really mysterious where this money is coming from. But it was a lot. And so just in a few minutes, they collected many thousands of dollars. So they came running to Srila Prabhupada. They said, Srila Prabhupada, just imagine what happened. Krishna sent us so much money. Srila Prabhupada was not even surprised. He said, I told you. You didn't believe me. Like that. So, yes. Srila Prabhupada would tell the devotees that, for example, living in America, there is no question of shortage of money. He said, it's such a place you just put your hand out of the window and in few minutes, in very short time, some money will land into your hand. Money is just everywhere, in the air. And so, I mean, Germany is not the poorest country on the planet, and Köln is not the poorest city in Germany as well. So that also applies here. So it's just a matter of connecting with that wealth, right? And so, yeah. The idea is to see abundance rather than scarcity. And Srila Prabhupada was really expert in this. But he was not really like waiting for money to fall from the sky. He was also working hard, right? To connect with the wealth. Yeah, not just working hard, but working smart. So I think working smart is more important than working hard in Krishna consciousness. And point number 4 is think vision first, resources second. So, yeah. Vision precedes resources. If you have big vision, solid omniscient vision, that will often lead to significant resources down the road. Waiting for big resources so you can have a vision is a recipe for that. So yes, that's really important. If you want big success, and big success, I mean, thinking big and doing big automatically means you have a lot of money. But if you will wait for tons of money to appear, and so then you can think, what will I do with it? You will never get anything. So you have to think first, what if I would have a lot of resources? What would I do then? And so, Srila Prabhupada had very big vision, and Keshav Prabhu mentioned how Srila Prabhupada shared that big vision for ISKCON's development when he was in New York with a stranger. But this is not the only instance. Even before Srila Prabhupada left stepped on Jaladuta, very shortly, like 1 or 2 days before, one reporter interviewed Srila Prabhupada because it was kind of unusual that such an old Swami is going to America. What he will be doing there. And so Mati Maharaj said, Swamiji, you will die there. Why are you going there? And so this reporter was asking, Swamiji, why are you going to America? What is there for you, right? What are you missing in America? And Prabhupada said, well, I'm not just an ordinary Swami. I'm actually the head of a huge spiritual movement. And I have thousands of disciples in the United States. And I have many centers all over America and in the world. And when I come to America, my disciples will organize a tour, preaching tour for me. And after I finish in America, I'll go and travel globally and spread Krishna consciousness. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada, what to speak of thousands of disciples and many centers, he didn't know even one person. Never even met anyone living in America. So how come that Srila Prabhupada was telling these things? Because from ordinary standpoint, it seems to be kind of wild imagination or whatever. But yeah, he has his vision.
Shooting rifles.
Yeah, chasing the rhinos with the Swami. That's Shyama Sundar Prabhu, title of his new book. So, thinking big and having big vision. So he specifically focused on what he wanted to achieve. Right? And that intense focus became an impetus for Krishna to fulfill his desire. And so yes, that someone depicted that vision Prabhupada had, that he's the world Acharya. Right? And so many people from so many countries are recognizing him as such. And that happened. And next point number 5, is to invest in personal and team development. Spiritual entrepreneurs aren't crazy spenders, but they see key distinction between an expense and an investment. They realize that going to conferences, networking with other leaders, buying books, and doing whatever it takes to make themselves and their team better is an investment. Sure, there are limits, but smart spiritual entrepreneurs will often spend minimum 10% of all the money they receive making themselves and their team better. Actually, it's one of the first, and I think it was the first instruction I got from my spiritual master. And that instruction was, money makes money. What does it mean? And he told that when he went to the souvenir shop and he was buying some souvenirs. And I was like confused, why is he buying some souvenirs? But then it became obvious that he wanted to give something to people who were supporting his mission. Right? He wanted to reciprocate with those who are doing something for him. So, and this is the principle of always reciprocating, always investing into those people who are your well-wishers and supporters. Because money is like water, right? And water likes flow. Flowing river always stays fresh. And so, if water becomes stagnant, it becomes useless for any practical purposes, right? And so, in order to receive, we should be ready to give. And Srila Prabhupada, and actually, giving means you're thinking of the people. And Srila Prabhupada was investing all the time. I mean, this is like a very small example of the investment into the future. Some of these children remembered that cookie they received from Srila Prabhupada for their whole life. Right? That cookie became an impetus for them to continue practicing Krishna consciousness. Right? Just one cookie. But Srila Prabhupada was ready to invest everything into devotees. I remember Gargamuni Prabhu, one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And he was giving class in Vrindavan. And he kind of challenged the devotees. He said, how many of you tried Srila Prabhupada's personal cooking? Of course, there were no devotees who had that fortune. And then he said, Srila Prabhupada was not, I didn't only try Srila Prabhupada's cooking. Srila Prabhupada fed me with his own hand. So, and we know that Srila Prabhupada was doing that. And in the Abhay Charan movie, produced by Bhakti Maharaj a few years ago, there is one very interesting episode when Srila Prabhupada lives in his flat at the 2nd Avenue, next to the shop front. And one guest comes to him in the morning on Sunday, just to ask a few philosophical questions, and then they speak, and then at some point Srila Prabhupada said, I wouldn't be able to spend more time with you because I will have to go out and sell some of my books to make enough money to buy products for cooking Sunday feast, because guests will be coming. And then this man realizes what happens, what is happening, that no one supports Srila Prabhupada. He is going out and distributing his own books to make money, to buy products, come back and cook and offer it to Krishna and feed everyone. And oftentimes Srila Prabhupada, they would come and eat and leave, and Srila Prabhupada would there to pick up the pieces, right? To clean after everyone. And he's over 70 years old. And this man says, Swamiji, you're so old, you don't have to exert yourself so much. That you're doing this all for us. And at least I could give you a donation. And so he pulls out some money, and Prabhupada says, thank you for the donation, but I'm not really exerting myself, because I'm distributing Krishna's books and people giving donations for Krishna. And I'm using these donations to buy products for Krishna and cook for Krishna and then feed Krishna's devotees. So it's all devotional service. But if you like to help me, that's very nice. And so we can understand that Srila Prabhupada was not just investing 10%, as this article suggests. He was not investing even 100%. He was investing more than he had, right? He was making money to invest it into the Sunday feast. And so we can understand that Srila Prabhupada very seriously followed this, investing into the development of the team of other devotees. And yes, as we were mentioning yesterday, that real success and happiness in Krishna consciousness comes when we are focused on making other devotees successful and happy, rather than trying to become successful and happy ourselves. Then point number 6, believe this is bigger than you. Of all the criticisms directed at spiritual entrepreneurs, the most common is often that they have big egos and it's all about them. Sometimes that's true, but most often it is not. Big vision does not automatically equal big ego. The best spiritual entrepreneurs humbly submit to God and are committed to a vision that is so much bigger than they are. Personal humility combined with big ambition for the mission fosters incredible leadership. Think about it this way. The reason we are talking about Paul, Apostle Paul, right? 2000 years later, is that Paul's work was not about Paul. It was about Jesus and the mission of the church. If your vision is all about you, it will die with you. True spiritual entrepreneurs know that. And so, it says that the best mission in life is one which exceeds your lifespan. That your goal should be so big that it should not even fit into your lifespan. And so, it says that there are 4 things we should be really focused on in our lives. 4 L's, I'm not sure if we'll make it in German language, but in English it is to live. Live means live your life. to the full extent rather than exist. I heard a German joke one time, which says that he died at 30, but he was buried at 80. Yeah, if you ever heard this one. Meaning that at 30 years, that man, lost all taste for life and was just living on autopilot for the next 50 years. And then finally physically perished. So it should not be like that. We should not just exist. We should actually live our life in a very purposeful way. And second L is to learn. And of course, Vaishnavas are brahmanas and they're supposed to be learning their whole lives and teaching others as well. And third one is to love, and we should develop our love towards Krishna and others as parts and parcels of Krishna. That's an indication of our spiritual advancement. But the biggest L is to leave a legacy behind. Leaving legacy means what will be there benefiting people and the world after you disappear. So we can see Srila Prabhupada left huge legacy. Right? What are the different examples of Srila Prabhupada's legacy? Books. So many books of knowledge, movement, temples, huge legacy.
Procedure.
Yes. And so this is the example. And so each and every one of us should be asking what should be our legacy. And yes, if you want to leave a serious legacy behind, that it should never be about you. And it's amazing combination, having big ambition and big humility, deep humility. And we can see that Srila Prabhupada's mission was not about self-aggrandizement, right? He was trying to promote Krishna. And that's why you can see all the books here on the table. Srila Prabhupada presents his books to the reporters. And you can see that he's actually sitting on the same level with his disciples, right? Actually, one disciple is even sitting level higher than him. Srila Prabhupada didn't care about these things. Because it was not about him, it was about Krishna and his mission. So then point number 7. Ship first, improve later. Perfectionists make terrible entrepreneurs. If you haven't shipped on your vision yet, because you are waiting for ideal conditions or the perfect result, you will wait forever.
Shift first, correct, later?
Ship first, ship. Start first, then improve. People ask me all the time whether new building or better lighting or a move to a portable location will help them grow. I always tell them it will not, because big churches never started big. They usually started very humbly. But because they are led by spiritual entrepreneurs, those entrepreneurs at every stage made the most of whatever they had. A spiritual entrepreneur can launch a growing church in dying building with little money. They make all the improvements later as facilities and resources grow. So Srila Prabhupada had ideal conditions or huge resources when he started his movement. You can see all these pictures, right? That's Srila Prabhupada actually sitting in the park on something, on some little cushion. And then Jagannath is standing on a tree stump next to him. So Srila Prabhupada didn't, I mean, this is San Francisco, he had at least a center, but before, in New York, he didn't even have anything, right? He was just out there doing Harinam at the street or in the park. And so he started with nothing, literally, right? But because he was convinced that, okay, I'll jump and Krishna will catch me, right? So, if this is Krishna's desire, if this is my Guru's desire, then everything will happen. And so, whatever is there, the main thing is to start moving forward. Right? Do not wait for perfect conditions, because it will never be perfect in the material world. Because material world means imperfect place. But if you do it for Krishna, then Krishna will make it perfect for you. It all depends on our faith. And next point, to be fine with ambiguity. Ambiguity means haziness or lack of clarity. Неопределенность. Ask a spiritual entrepreneur how they are going to do what they do, and first number is, I don't know. We're just going to do it. There is something powerful in that. If you have it all figured out before you launch it, your vision isn't big enough. So, and Srila Prabhupada, we don't know what he was talking, what he was thinking about, like in this picture, right? What was going on in his head, but we know for a fact that he faced so many problems. That he's growing, he's gone. And oftentimes he was thinking, what will happen? Where it's all going? And at some point it was so frustrating for him that there was an episode when Srila Prabhupada said, I'm prepared to leave the school. Even though he said never leave his school, right? But he himself was so frustrated with the ignorance of his disciples that he said, no, I'll just leave his school and let them do whatever they want. So, yeah, he went through a lot of trouble. But all the way through, he had a lot of faith in Krishna. And so he was just going ahead. And point number 9, risk everything without guarantee of success. You know, from this point onward, everything becomes more and more intense. But this is what it means to be a spiritual entrepreneur. Too many leaders hope for some kind of guarantee. Risk brings no guarantee because it's risk. Spiritual entrepreneurs are okay with that. Most spiritual entrepreneurs want to die trying. Usually they don't die trying, but the fact that they are willing to is crucial. Ironically, if a spiritual entrepreneur has a solid plan that's on mission, they usually don't fail. But you have to be willing to fail to succeed. So was Srila Prabhupada willing to fail to succeed?
Yes.
Was he failing? many times. Was he willing to die trying? Here we go. Jaladuta. He had 2 heart attacks on the ship. He nearly died. And back to the previous points, waiting for ideal time or ideal circumstances to start something. I don't know if in Germany this is a common belief that Friday the 13th is not very good day to start something. Yeah?
Yeah, it's also there.
Friday the 13th. And when did Srila Prabhupada started his journey? When did Srila Prabhupada started his mission? It was September, Friday the 13th of 1965. Oh no, August, 13th of August, which was Friday. 13th of August, and then 14th of September, I think. Here, I can't remember. I think September here, right? Yeah, 1 month. Yeah. So, he didn't care. And possibly, if he wouldn't start on Friday the 13th, he wouldn't have 2 heart attacks, who knows? But he didn't care about it. And so, this is the example of spiritual entrepreneur, ready for anything, ready to go for any types of sacrifices for the success of his mission. And next point is even more shocking. Never wait for consensus. Too many churches will only move forward if there is consensus. That's a critical mistake. Everyone understands what consensus means. Consensus means everyone agrees on something, right? There is agreement. And so, it says that spiritual entrepreneurs don't wait for consensus. Consensus kills courage. By the time you have consensus, ideas are so watered down, they are worthy of the committee that put them together. You heard the joke about camel? You know how camels appeared? Who is the camel? It says that camel was the horse which was improved by committee.
What was consensus? Consensus
So,
kills
courage. You know. Because you count on others, so you're not counting on yourself. So consensus kills courage. By the time you have consensus, ideas are so watered down, they are worthy of the committee that put them together. Spiritual entrepreneurs rarely act alone. At least the smart ones don't. But they are ready to move ahead with a group of early adopters or followers, knowing most will eventually buy into whatever is being proposed once they see it working. So, it doesn't mean you become completely independent and do everything alone, but you don't wait for everyone to support you. If you're really convinced that something is worth doing for Krishna and Guru, just go ahead and do it. If you succeed, Krishna and Guru will be glorified, Vaishnavas will be benefited. Right? If you fail, it's going to be your problem. Right? But if you wait for committee to give you full approval, then you know well how it works. Yes.
do you put some questions? You're saying the last sentence, if you're waiting for a committee. So I remember that they are in the ISKCON, but there's also a quite huge apparatus of bureaucracy.
Yes.
Is this not controversy?
Yeah, it is controversial, but we can understand that this bureaucratic machinery is basically meant for, controlling ignorance, controlling problems and problematic people. And if someone is ignorant, they would not have courage or bravery or power to do something, and so they will have to be guided by the bureaucratic machinery, which is all right. But if someone does not need to be told what to do and what not to do, and actually is convinced that whatever I'm doing is the right thing because Guru and Krishna are approving and Vaishnavas are happy with that, they don't need bureaucratic machinery. So bureaucratic machinery is only there for controlling ignorant people, basically speaking. Smart people, they don't need to be micromanaged. They can do things on their own. And my conviction is that we should try to encourage independent and thoughtful people in our society, because these are the real leaders, and the more of those we have in our society, the more successful our movement will be. That I assume every manager would be dreaming of having maximum number of people in the community who do not require any maintenance and who only give, good fruits, positive fruits. And so that's the idea. And only because we are not really focused on that, and we are settling on, dealing with anyone and everyone in our society. And then, yes, there are so many problems, and we need kind of systems of controls, of checks and balances, etc., etc. But if we just, shift our focus, then, this thing will not be really necessary. That's the idea. Okay. And, yeah. And point number 11, let the critics talk while you act. The critics will always talk. Spiritual entrepreneurs know that. They don't get weighed down by critics who criticize what others are doing and do little themselves. How do you respond to critics? By acting. Just act while the critics talk. You will accomplish something and they will not. So that's the idea. That I've noticed that in ISKCON we have two types of devotees. At least active devotees, right? So Prabhupada was speaking about active intelligence and active fools. Of course, many devotees are kind of neutral. They don't get involved. They just live their lives and don't do much, but they don't criticize. But there are two active groups, right? One is very big active group and the other one is very small. And the big active group, they don't do anything. They just criticize whatever others are doing, right? And the smaller group, they just try to take some responsibility. They try to do something for Krishna and for Guru and Vaishnavas. And so it is compulsory and it is actually unavoidable, and this is one of the biggest things. If you take responsibility and if you try to do something, it's almost unavoidable that people will criticize and they will find fault with everything that you do. And so, if you want to be successful, you have to get used to it. Being always criticized for everything. The more you do, the more you will be criticized. And Srila Prabhupada, was he criticized? Yeah, of course. He was criticized by so many people for so many things. His own god brothers, they criticized so many things he was doing. And point number 12, which is the last and the most shocking point, is break rules. Quite obviously, you should never break scriptural rules. And the great spiritual entrepreneurs never do. Their character is solid. But you are going to absolutely need to break some human rules if you're going to disrupt the status quo. Innovation always breaks rules. Why? Because innovation never asks for permission. It just innovates. And I suppose that article was kind of borrowing points from business world. Because business is always about disruptions, right? Disrupting the status quo, right? If any of you have experience with business, you have some large corporation who feels, okay, we're doing really well and these people are our customers and they will never go away, right? And so they charge a lot of money, and because they're so comfortable, they don't really focus on customer satisfaction, quality, etc. And then some smart young entrepreneurs come along and they think, oh my God, these guys, they provide such poor quality of service or product and they charge so much. Let us charge less and provide better quality. And in few years, you see this company going down the drain because all the customers, they go to, for a better option. And so, and they break the rules, right? Because this corporation established the rule, okay, we give this high price and then we provide mediocre quality. But then these guys, they say, okay, we have different rules. We have lower price and better quality. And some are completely undefeatable. I mean, I heard of this kind of business people in my youth, but I could never imagine meeting anyone like that personally in my life. But then Krishna arranged that, actually. And this is a specific Japanese phenomenon. It does not exist anywhere else in the world. And these are business people who are making their profit from 3%, I think, 3 or 5, I think it is 3% margin from their business, which is unbelievable. And later, when I traveled to Tokyo, I was introduced to one of such business people. And I asked him a question that, how do you do your business? Because 3% profit means any little mistake means you go bankrupt. And he laughed. I said, And he said, yes, I know, I went bankrupt 4 times in 25 years. And then he said, I had to restart my business from scratch. And now I've established myself so solidly that there's no question of bankruptcy, because we have like 6,000 outlets for selling our own product, and our product is so good, such a good quality, everyone wants it. And he said, we've started that, they sell some kind of herbal remedy for boosting immune system. And when they started, one package was costing like 300 yen, which is about $3 nowadays. I guess it was worth more back then. And he said now it's 100 yen at that, $1. And basically because of the inflation, we can imagine that he reduced the price of his product not 3 times, but probably 30 times over the years. And I said, why do you do that? Basically that was his rule, that never get more than 3% of the profit. Can you imagine that? You have to work so hard to make your living with 3%. And I said, why do you do that? And he said, it's very simple. I want, because my product is really good, I want every single person to be able to afford it. Whether they have money or have no money, still I want them to use my product. It was shocking. This man managed to combine charity and business in one package. It's kind of charitable business. And actually, because his product, the quality is so good, I said, why don't you go international? He said, nobody outside of Japan agrees to that condition, that you cannot get more than 3% from the profit. Because like in America, someone was really interested. They said, oh, we want to sell your product. And they said, how much do you charge? They said, no, we will decide. He said, no, I'm giving you the product, I'm deciding on the price policy, that the price should be only 3% compared to the cost. And they said, are you crazy? How can you do business like that? He said, yes, in Japan we do like this. So yeah, this is against all business rules, for example, that you have this kind of business people. And they disrupt everybody's status quo. That's why you can see Japanese businesses taking all the world. Like everybody drives Toyotas and all these Suzukis, etc., etc. Because so many of them following this principle. And so basically, you will look at Vaishnava history, how did Srila Prabhupada, what kind of rules Srila Prabhupada broke? First of all, was Srila Prabhupada breaking rules? A lot, right? What is he doing here? What kind of yoga? Marriage. Sannyasi is doing marriage ceremony. This is unheard of.
He's not participating. He's
doing marriage ceremony. Sannyasi should not be involved in these things. And he was criticized so heavily. He is even writing in the purports about it, right? And at some point, Srila Prabhupada said, my godbrothers criticized me so much, they called me matchmaker. They said this Swami became a matchmaker. But what can I do? They need to get married, there is no one else to help them, so I'm taking that on, etc. And so many other rules Srila Prabhupada broke, right? What are the other rules Srila Prabhupada was breaking?
Giving initiation to ladies.
Yes, giving Brahman initiation to female disciples. Yeah, ladies, Brahmacharini ashram, completely his invention. Any other rules he was breaking? Giving sannyas to Mlechas and Yavanas. Crossing the ocean for preaching purposes. Like if you do it in other, traditionally in Vaishnava culture, you don't do that. You lose your sannyas status. So Prabhupada didn't get it. Huh?
He gave initiation to the devotees with long hair.
Yeah, not only devotees with long hair, but he gave initiation to those who were not even following forever the principles.
Yes.
That first initiation, they didn't even have idea. Nowadays, before you get initiation, you have to wait and make sure you follow all the principles really well, otherwise you're not recommended, right? And the first initiation, devotees didn't even know what they're signing up for. Swamiji just said, come for initiation, and then after the initiation, he didn't even tell them. He wrote that famous note, right? In many temples they have the copy of this handwritten note of Srila Prabhupada. All initiated disciples must follow the four regular principles. And chant at least 16 rounds a day. Oh yeah, at that morning program. So they had no idea. Wow, did we sign up for that? That came as a surprise later. And in one class, Srila Prabhupada said, I was not even sure how to tell you about four Advaita principles. I was thinking, if I tell you, you have to follow this, you will tell me, Swamiji, thank you very much, now you can go home. But it didn't happen. So, anyway, that the idea is that Srila Prabhupada broke so many rules, right? And it started with Bhakti Saraswati breaking the rules, right? Because Bhakti Saraswati was giving Brahman initiation to those who were not born in Brahman families. And Prabhupada went so much further than him, right? Sannyas to those who were not even born in India at all. Yeah, like from Vedic standpoint, people like us are not even considered to be human beings, right? And yes, Prabhupada didn't care about these rules because he was disrupting the status quo. What was the status quo? Very proud and greedy caste brahmanas that were claiming their right to represent God to everyone else, right? And actually, Srila Prabhupada described that those brahmanas, they actually ruined the entire Vedic culture in India. That was their fault because they were abusing people so much, especially low-class people, because caste consciousness is so strong, still very strong in India. And he described that at some point, if Brahman was passing by the street, if Shudra would pass by next to Brahmana's house, he had to cry, I'm a Shudra, I'll be passing by, please close your windows and doors so that you do not get contaminated by seeing me. So this is how bad it was. And Prabhupada actually said, how come that Muslims appeared in India? Because these were not Arabian people, they were Hindus. So how did they took to Islam? Because these were low-class people, And they were so badly abused by Brahmana class that they were thinking, we better become Muslims. At least in there, we'll have some rights. We'll be treated a little bit more like human beings. Why should we, tolerate all this abuse? And so he said, yeah, this was the fault of the caste Brahmanas, that so many people turned into Muslims in India. And so, and Prabhupada specifically, this was part of his mission to disrupt the status quo. Caste religious status quo. He was giving spiritual knowledge and spiritual practice, making it available to everybody. So that was his idea. And that's why he was breaking the rules, and he didn't care who will say what, because he knew what he was doing, because he was doing what his guru told him. And so he was acting according to Krishna's desire. So that's Srila Prabhupada's example. And we can spend a few more minutes, because the idea of this presentation is to make you think, how can you, in your position, follow in Srila Prabhupada's footsteps and actualize these points in your lives. So if you have any questions, doubts, comments, suggestions, complaints, you can share. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. And we can see that Srila Prabhupada was very practical. That's why he broke a lot of rules, because he was practical and not too much like fanatism. Only, okay, we need to do like this, very practical. But sometimes,
yeah, I was remembering this episode in, Janaki and Mukunda were getting married, and Yamuna was Janaki's sister, right? And she came to help with the marriage, and she was smoking, and she was wearing blue jeans. And Prabhupada said, according to Vedic culture, the sister of the bride should help in the kitchen. And so he told her to help in the kitchen, and then she said, Swamiji, can I have the cigarette break? He said, okay, but after coming back, wash your hands. It's unheard of, right? Cooking for Krishna and having cigarette breaks. So Prabhupada was just going for it. Because he had no other option. It was a very practical thing to do.
yes, sometimes we can be like a little bit confused, because we think, okay, Prabhupada was practical, so I will be practical. But how not confused to be practical with lazy, with like, I don't know how to explain it in English, but like, if Prabhupada was practical, I will do also, and don't follow rules. So
yeah, well, we can break rules if we don't have any option, right? And so that is the difference between imitating Srila Prabhupada and actually following him. Because Srila Prabhupada had no other choice. That's why he was doing what he was doing. But when he had choice, he was trying to follow everything. Or make the devotees follow everything. And so, yeah, if we have choice but we don't follow it, then it's laziness. But if we don't have choice, then we can actually break the rules. Okay. Keshav Prabhu had his hand first. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this nice lecture. My question is, I was also thinking often about these points, what you mentioned at the beginning, to think high. And for my example, I'm almost every day on the streets on book distribution. And I was also often thinking about it. Should myself think that we get way more luxury for books for Krishna? But on the other hand, is this also the thought? Should we think about it? Is it really like? I mean, on one part we can say it's spiritual because it's for Krishna, but is it not maybe the wrong way that we meditate on Lakshmi to get more money, or how we can combine it, or how we can get a good balance, or in a right, good Krishna conscious way? Maybe you can say something about how we can manage.
Yes, of course. When you are serving Krishna, distributing books, that your priority should not be money. We should not be money conscious. And that's the difference between spiritual and material entrepreneurship, right? That material entrepreneurship could be based on the desire to get a lot of money, but spiritual entrepreneurship should be based on desire to serve and benefit. And so thinking big on book distribution should not mean how can I get more money from people. Thinking big for book distributors should be how can I make sure that everybody in Köln takes Prabhupada's books and make sure that they all read it and follow what the books are saying in their lives for becoming devotees. That's big thing, not getting a lot of money out of people. Because if you think about lots of money, then, unfortunately, it can result in cheating and all these kind of things, just for money's sake. It's very dangerous. That's why article says so many times, instead of thinking of money, think of what do you want to do, then the money will come automatically if you focus on that vision. Money is just an instrument, it's not the goal in itself. That's an important point.
Was there an aspect of compassion present, of Srila Prabhupada's compassion when he was breaking the rules? Was
Yes.
it about compassion as well too?
Yes, he was not breaking the rules just to show how he can, go against the rules, but yes, just to give everyone an opportunity to become Krishna conscious. Yes.
Thank you for that, Professor. I just wanted to ask if beginner devotees, should they fully focus on the basics first to develop stability in Krishna consciousness? Or can they also on the side start their own vision, start with their own creativity?
Yeah, it can be both. And in one sense, if you have a big goal, if you have a big mission, then it might become a stimuli for you to become very serious in your spiritual practices and become really good at what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to achieve that goal. In Russia, there is a proverb that, the soldier who never dreams of being a general is not a good soldier.
On this point also, for Srila Prabhupada, he had full faith in Krishna. He was extremely Shraddha. But especially for beginner devotees, they have some goal, they have some vision also, but at the same time they lack faith also. I mean, they think the faith is not fully developed. So, but to develop the faith, it may take like many years, those many years. So, what would be the ideal compromise? Like, to start, to not start, to just leave and just focus on faith first, and then we'll see the rest.
Yes. Well, faith develops in association of the devotees. That's why, first step is Shraddha, little faith, then Sadhu Sangha, and by Sadhu Sangha faith develops. Yeah? And then of course faith develops further when you start serving under the guidance of a spiritual master, whether Diksha or Shiksha Guru. And so yes, faith is everything. And that's why if you associate with those whose faith is really strong, then your faith becomes very strong. And if you serve those people, then your faith becomes even stronger.
So, means unless one has faith, you should not start for working on a vision.
I mean, if you don't have faith, you wouldn't even have a vision to start with. Yeah, these things are connected. All right. Anyone else? So, okay. Then from tomorrow onwards, we'll be doing training elements. How many of you would like to have a big vision and know exactly what is it that you want to do? Step with me.
Big with me.
Then you're at this step with it. So how many of you would like to get trained in being visionary leaders and defining your mission, etc.? Yeah. Okay, so from tomorrow onwards we're gonna start this. Yeah, I guess because there are pretty much temple devotees for the congregation, it's really hard to participate in the evening, right? Okay. Anyway, if you encourage some other devotees to join,
Is it
they can.
two
Yeah.
sessions? Is it a 2 session or 3 session? Is it today included?
Yeah, we can do as many as we can, as many as we have.
I'm asking, so